We were ordinary. That was our thing. Ordinary house in a quiet Oregon suburb. Ordinary 9-to-5 jobs, ordinary bedtime routines with our 14-month-old son, Jacob. Weekends meant pancakes, park visits, and laundry. Life was nothing spectacular, but in its predictability, I found peace. And love? I thought we had that, too. Her name was Elise. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 5. Elise had this subtle way of making everyone around her feel calm, like a human exhale. She was warm, clever, patient. The kind of woman who never forgot a birthday or a kindness. But somewhere in the marrow of things, a tremor had begun to rattle. There were hints, too quiet to name at first. A missed call here, a delayed return from the grocery store there. She laughed less. Her eyes met mine a second too late when I spoke. I chalked it up to parenthood, stress, life. I thought maybe I was the one unraveling, not us. I started seeing a therapist. Told him I was paranoid. That I couldn't shake this tension humming beneath our home like faulty wiring. I thought I had trust issues. But the sessions didn't make the feeling go away. If anything, they sharpened it. Then she told me she was going on a girls' trip. You deserve it, I said. And I meant it. I took her suitcase to the car, kissed her forehead, and waved her goodbye. She blew a kiss back from the driver's seat, engine humming like nothing was broken between us. She pulled away, and I stood there in the driveway long after the tail lights vanished. Something gnawed at me that night. I remember thinking, if I find out I was wrong, I owe her the biggest apology of my life. But if I was right? If the ache in my gut was more than a phantom? So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I hired a private investigator. I expected it would take days. Maybe even weeks. I was wrong. 43 minutes after Elise left, the PI sent me a photo. Elise, parked in front of an unfamiliar house. A man stepping into her car. Then another photo, her hand resting on his thigh, casually. Intimately. Then a third, the kiss. Soft, unhurried. Not a mistake, a ritual. Finally, a video. Them entering an Airbnb together. Laughing. Comfortable. That was Friday. She wouldn't be home until Sunday. I sat on the edge of our bed, phone in one hand, disbelief in the other. And still, she texted me, called, sent photos from a made-up beach day with her girls. I cried. I shook. Then I called my therapist. Then, I called my sister. She dropped everything and drove up from 2 towns over. When she arrived, she didn't say anything. Just hugged me, like she was bracing me against some kind of spiritual collapse. I told her everything. I told her I wanted to disappear, but I also wanted to be there every moment for my son. I couldn't leave and I couldn't stay. My mind split itself in two. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched Jacob breathe, his tiny chest rising and falling like nothing in the world could go wrong. I felt a responsibility to protect that illusion. And so I planned. Sunday morning arrived like a lie. Elise came through the front door with a bounce in her step, beach bag over her shoulder, hair tousled by wind that didn't exist. She wore sunglasses too big for her face and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And just like that, we were a family again. On the outside. Hey, babe, she said, kissing my cheek. I flinched, but she didn't notice. She smelled like hotel soap and someone else's cologne. I used to think my sense of smell was subpar, but grief fine-tunes all the senses. She dropped her bag, scooped up Jacob, and nuzzled into him like she was the Virgin Mother reincarnated. He giggled, unaware of the tectonic plates shifting beneath our lives. I watched them, frozen. Missed you so much, she cooed to him. He missed you, too, I said quietly, staring past her. We both did. For the next hour, I played house. I asked about her trip, and she rattled off lies like beads on a rosary. Spa day. Group dinner. Wine tasting. The kind of fiction that was too perfect. She even mentioned a sunset she never saw. She was good. Practiced. Rehearsed. It reminded me of the time I took up community theater for a semester in college. I was cast as a tree. No lines. Still managed to screw it up. The difference was, she was no tree. She was the playwright, the director, and the damn lighting tech all rolled into one. And I was the stage. Later that day, while Jacob napped, I stood at the kitchen sink staring out the window. Elise came up behind me and rested her chin on my shoulder like she used to do when life was soft. "You okay?" I turned slightly, nodded. "Yeah. Just tired." It was only partly a lie. I was exhausted. Tired of being gaslit, of pretending, of spinning my wheels in an emotional snowstorm. She walked off humming. Humming. Like her conscience was on vacation, too. That night, I lay awake in the guest room with Jacob's baby monitor next to me. My therapist had suggested I move out slowly, strategically. He called it building emotional scaffolding. But all I felt like was a man living in the attic of his own life. Around 2 a.m., I heard her get up to pee. The floorboards creaked like they were betraying her secrets to me. And maybe they were. I found myself crying again, but quietly. Not the sobs of Friday night. These were different. These were the kind of tears that leak out when your body knows it's breaking, but your mind hasn't signed off yet. I got up, walked to Jacob's crib, and just sat there, holding his little sock in my hand. That was the moment. The emotional razor's edge. I realized that it wasn't her betrayal that hurt the most, it was that I had doubted myself. That I had convinced myself I was broken for feeling what I knew to be true. I whispered to Jacob, "I promise I won't raise you in a lie." The moonlight poured in through the blinds like a silent witness. No jury. No judge. Just a father, a sock, and a promise. There's a difference between knowing and proving. Between certainty and strategy. I had crossed the threshold of doubt, now I needed control. Monday morning, while Elise was in the shower, I did 3 things. I moved my hunting gear, rifles and my bow out of the house and into my friend Nate's safe. I ordered a discreet nanny cam from an online retailer that promised overnight delivery. And I found a short-term Airbnb on the other side of town, month-to-month lease pending. Elise came down for breakfast like nothing had changed. She wore my hoodie. The same hoodie I had loaned her after our first camping trip. And there she was, flipping pancakes, humming a tune from some band we both used to love. I almost laughed. Almost. But not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. It was like watching a magician repeat a trick you already knew the mechanics of. She smiled, passed me a plate, kissed my cheek. Her lips still tasted like lies. I excused myself to check emails. Upstairs, I practiced what I'd say when the time came. I rehearsed it again and again, short, clean, emotionless. A 3-minute speech. Like ripping out a thorn you know you'll bleed from either way. I know about the affair. I'm not ready to talk. I'll be moving out for now. We need to figure out custody of Jacob. Straightforward. No raised voices. No room for manipulation. I knew she might cry. She might deflect, deny, even try to spin it back on me like somehow I drove her into someone else's arms with my doubts. But I wouldn't bite. I wasn't there to win. I was there not to lose. That night, I installed the nanny cam and a lamp by the bookshelf. Elise asked why I was fiddling with the cords, and I mumbled something about needing to upgrade the router. She shrugged and went back to her wine. Tuesday, I signed the short-term lease. Wednesday, the nanny cam captured her pacing in the living room on a phone call, whispering. Her voice dropped into that low register she used only for 2 people, me, and now, apparently, him. I saved the footage. That night, I called my sister again. Told her I was locking in my exit strategy. You need anything from me? She asked. Yeah. Be around when I do it. Just in case. She agreed. Thursday morning, Elise left for work, and I stayed behind under the pretense of a video call. I packed 2 suitcases. Just essentials, clothes, documents, and a duffel full of baby gear. Then I went to Jacob's room. Picked him up while he napped. Just held him. His head on my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. I don't cry easily, not since Friday, but something broke open in me then. A quiet sob slipped through. It wasn't anger. It was grief. The kind you feel when the home you built is no longer yours. And still, there was humor there. Dark humor. Gallows grade. I remember thinking, I should invoice Elise for emotional demolition services. I mean, hell, if she wanted to gut me to the studs, at least let me charge by the hour. I'd be the first ex-husband contractor in Oregon who bills in heartbreak units. I zipped up the duffel, kissed Jacob's forehead, and whispered, "We're gonna be okay. Even if it takes a while." That night, Elise came home to an ordinary evening. I gave her space. I made dinner. I bathed Jacob. I was calm. Too calm, maybe. And then she asked me, casually, if I wanted to do a little wine and movie night. "Not tonight," I said. "I've got an early morning." She didn't push. Which told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't worried about the space between us. Because she had a fallback. An insurance policy with a 5 o'clock shadow. Friday morning. D-Day. I woke up before dawn, my heart beating with a strange calm. It wasn't exactly calm, it was resignation. The feeling a person might have when entering a courtroom knowing that the verdict has already been handed down. All that was left for me to do was present the evidence. Lay out the facts. Wait for the silence to fall. I had it all planned. Eliza would come home from work, I would sit her down, turn on the video, and read the text I had memorized like a prayer. No dramatic gestures. No shouting. Just a quiet reckoning. At 8:17, the doorbell rang. It was her father, Jerry. Only he wasn't alone. Surprise, came a cheerful voice from behind him, too cheerful for someone with a soul. It was Barbara. Her mother. Let me tell you about Barbara. Barbara was the embodiment of a dentist's office, sterile, uncomfortable, and full of barely concealed judgment. She was a retired kindergarten director who ran her own Pinterest blog called Living Modestly But With Dignity. Once, she sent me an email with a PDF file titled 50 Ways to Improve Your Marriage Through Prayer and Composting. In that order. She burst into our house with 2 suitcases on wheels and a pie. Who brings a pie on a surprise visit? Psychopaths and Midwesterners. We decided it was time for a family weekend. "It's been so long," she exclaimed, hugging me and holding the pie, which was slightly pressed against my shirt. Jerry smiled at me, but it was more of a grimace. He looked as happy as I did. I didn't have time for this. "Where's Elisa?" Barbara asked, already setting the coffee as if she owned the kitchen. "We wanted to surprise her." "You did," I thought. "Just not the way you wanted to." Eliza had already left for work. I considered telling them to come back another time, but that train had already left and pulled into the station in my living room. "She's at work," I said. "She'll be back around 5. "Great," Barbara smiled, settling down on the sofa. "Then we'll have time to talk." "Just the men, right, Jerry?" Jerry muttered something and went out onto the back porch. "Smart man." I texted Eliza. "Your parents are here. Surprise visit. Not sure how long they'll be." 4 minutes later, she replied. "What? Seriously? Mom didn't say anything. Try to keep them entertained. I'll come home early." Try to keep them entertained? Am I a court jester? Before lunch, Barbara asked me 5 different ways, "Are you two okay? Is everything all right with Eliza?" She was sniffing the air. Unfortunately, she had a bloodhound sense of smell when it came to tension. I deflected her questions like a high-stakes ping-pong player. "We're just tired." "Jacob's teething again." Barbara narrowed her eyes. "Are you sure? You look pale. Did you get enough sleep?" "No, not counting 3 hours and a nervous breakdown as rest. I managed to slip upstairs on the pretext of organizing my papers. In reality, I just wanted to be alone." I opened my laptop and checked the video again. The sound was clear. The kiss was unmistakable. The voice? Hers. No doubt about it. Downstairs, I could hear Barbara laughing loudly at a rerun of Frasier. A sitcom about misunderstandings. The irony of the situation almost gave me an aneurysm. By the time Elisa walked through the door at 4:36 p.m., I had already abandoned my plan to confront her. Too many witnesses. Too much noise. She saw me, then her parents. "Oh my God," she said, putting down her bag. "You weren't kidding." Surprise! Barbara exclaimed again. Eliza hugged her, glancing briefly at me. Her smile was tense. Later that evening, after Jacob had gone to bed and Jerry had fallen asleep in the chair under the influence of bourbon, Eliza and I stood in the kitchen, alone for the first time all day. Didn't you think to warn me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't know, she whispered. My mom does that sometimes. That's inconvenient, I said. I had important plans. Like what? I looked her in the eyes. For the first time in a week, I almost told her the truth. But instead I said, something for us. But it can wait. Saturday morning. I was done waiting. Jerry left early to run errands and check on a plumbing issue at their place, which I took as code for escaping Barbara. She remained in the kitchen, enthusiastically reorganizing our spice rack while narrating her thought process aloud like she was filming a low-budget cooking show no one asked for. Elise was upstairs playing with Jacob. I had 20 minutes. Maybe less. I called her down. Hey, she said, wiping her hands on a towel, cheeks flushed. She looked surprised to see the laptop open on the coffee table. Everything okay? Sit, I said. There wasn't anger in my voice, but it lacked warmth. She felt it. She hesitated, then sat on the couch. I clicked the file. The video started. Her picking him up. Him getting into the car. The kiss. Their laughter. The Airbnb door swinging shut behind them. She blinked. Once. Twice. Then froze. I didn't say anything. When the footage ended, she turned to me. Her eyes weren't wide in shock. They were narrow. Focused. Calculating. You had me followed? Of all the responses she could have chosen, apology, denial, a plea for understanding, she picked indignation. You lied to me, I said. Repeatedly. I asked you directly. And you told me I was paranoid. That I needed therapy. Her jaw clenched. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't need to tell me. You could have just not cheated. Silence stretched like rubber between us, tight and dangerous. It wasn't serious, she finally said. It was. I don't even know what it was. A mistake. I let out a hollow laugh. A weekend away with your boss is more than a mistake, Elise. That's a choice. She swallowed. Looked toward the stairs. Probably wondering if Barbara was within earshot. Or maybe if Jacob would come toddling in at the worst possible moment. I didn't sleep with him, she said. I stared at her. You kissed him. You rented a place together. You spent 2 nights. Elise, you bought groceries. You planned it. We just talked. Then why lie? Why not say that up front when I asked? She had no answer. Because there wasn't one. I moved out, I said. I've already got a rental. The weapons are out of the house. There's a nanny cam here, this conversation is being recorded. Her face paled. Why? Because I have a son. And I need proof in case this goes where I think it's going. Tears welled in her eyes then. The waterworks that should have come earlier. But it didn't feel real. It felt like watching an actress shift scenes. Please, she said, reaching for me. Don't do this. We can fix it. We can go to counseling. For Jacob. I stepped back. No. We can co-parent. That's it. The door to the guest room creaked open. Barbara poked her head out. Is everything all right in here? We both turned. Fine, Elise said quickly. Barbara's eyes moved from her daughter to me. Then to the paused video on the laptop screen. She didn't say a word. But she knew. That night, sleep didn't come. Not for me. I lay in the Airbnb bed, one hand on my phone, the other on the baby monitor I brought from home. Jacob's soft breathing filtered through like a lullaby for someone else's peace. I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts not so much racing as circling, a carousel of things I couldn't change. Elise didn't call. She didn't text. And in a way, that was louder than any apology she could have faked. By Sunday, Barbara had left without much of a goodbye. Just a brisk hug to Jacob, a nod toward me. Her eyes held something new, not disappointment, not even sympathy, just understanding. The kind that stings more because it confirms you're not crazy. Elise texted me once, "We need to talk." I didn't answer. That night, Jacob came down with a fever. 101.8, I panicked in the way only first-time fathers do. I held him in my arms, whispering nothing words while the thermometer beeped like a countdown. Called the pediatrician's line. Pushed fluids. Waited for the Tylenol to work. And through it all, I didn't call Elise. That might have been the moment I really knew that some line inside me had snapped for good. Not in rage. In resolve. You don't reach for the person who burned the bridge when you need to cross it. Monday morning, she was waiting for me at the therapist's office. The same beige couch. The same slow-spoken therapist. But this time, Elise sat with her hands balled in her lap like a student waiting to be disciplined. "I want to be honest," she said, eyes watery. "I want to fix this." She started talking before I could even exhale. It wasn't just the one weekend, she admitted. It had been going on for months. Started as emotional. Became physical. The boss, his name was Patrick, had recently separated from his wife. She swore it wasn't love. Just comfort. Just escape. She said she hated herself for it. That she felt invisible at home. That she didn't know how to tell me she was drowning while smiling through dinner. I sat there, stone-faced. Listening, but not feeling. Like my ears worked, but my chest was shut off. The therapist turned to me. "How are you processing all of this?" And I answered with a strange calm, "I'm not sure." It's like watching someone paint over a fire. Elise flinched. After the session, we stood in the parking lot. "You must hate me," she whispered. I shook my head. "I don't. That's the problem. I don't feel anything right now." "That's scarier." She cried. I didn't. I drove home, well, not home, but the Airbnb, and put Jacob down for his nap. Then I sat on the floor of the living room, surrounded by folded laundry and unanswered texts, and let myself crack a little. Not a breakdown. Just a leak. I kept thinking, we used to be happy. We had plans. We were supposed to be better than this. But that version of us was gone. Not just bruised. Dead. I picked up my phone and typed a message to Elise. Deleted it. Then typed another. "I think we need to formally separate. We'll keep working on co-parenting, but I can't keep living in a lie. I need to be whole for Jacob. I hope you understand." Sent. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then nothing. 1 week after the confrontation, I took Jacob to the zoo. It was one of those gray Pacific Northwest mornings where the sky looked like a ceiling someone forgot to finish. Damp, cool, the kind of day that smelled like moss and second chances. Jacob pointed at everything with unfiltered awe: the giraffes, the penguins, the snack stand that sold cinnamon pretzels. For a while, I forgot everything. The lies, the footage, the silence from Elise. It all melted under the sound of my son's laughter. At the tiger enclosure, a little girl asked Jacob if he wanted to share her animal crackers. He gave her one of his own Cheerios in return. I almost cried at that. At how easy it still was for him to believe in people. On the drive home, he fell asleep holding one of the zoo maps. His little hand clutched it like treasure. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled without irony. Then I pulled into the driveway of the Airbnb and saw Elise sitting on the steps. I didn't want a scene in front of Jacob, so I parked slowly, unbuckled him, and carried him past her without a word. She followed us in, quiet as a shadow. When Jacob was in bed, she sat at the kitchen table. I didn't join her right away. I poured myself some water. Then I sat down across from her. "I'm pregnant," she said. The words dropped like bricks. I stared at her. Not with anger. Not even panic. Just disbelief, shaped like silence. "I only found out 2 days ago," she whispered. "I haven't told anyone. Not even him." Is it mine? I asked. The words came out more gently than I expected. I think so. The timeline matches up, mostly. But I want to be honest about the possibility. I know what it looks like. For a moment, I imagined a baby with Jacob's smile. Then I imagined a baby with a stranger's eyes. Elise covered her face with her hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. And for once, I believed her. Not because of the tears. But because there was no performance left in her voice. No rehearsed lines. Just a woman unraveling. I don't know what you want from me, I said. Pity? Forgiveness? A do-over? No, she sobbed. Just space. Just time. And, maybe hope. Hope. It was a funny word. Hope wasn't the spark anymore. It was the ash that came after. I nodded. Not because I agreed. But because I understood the language of pain now. Of needing something that might never come. When she left, I stood alone in the hallway for a long time. Then I walked into Jacob's room. I stared at him. Watched his chest rise and fall. And I whispered a quiet truth into the dark. If the baby's mine, I'll love them. I'll raise them. But I'll never go back to the version of us that let this happen. I kissed Jacob's forehead. My heart cracked open a little more. And in that moment, something shifted, not closure, not clarity, but a strange joy. The joy of knowing I had survived the worst of it. That I could still feel love without needing permission. It was Thursday when the email came in. Mediation appointment, final scheduling. I read it 3 times. Location. Time. Finality. I called my sister and asked if she could take Jacob for the afternoon. She didn't ask questions, just said, I'll bring his favorite snacks. I had my suit cleaned the day before. Not because I wanted to look good, but because I wanted to feel like a man who hadn't been broken open and left on the floor like old china. I trimmed my beard. Wore the watch Elise gave me on our first anniversary. Let it tick away like a reminder of all the minutes I'd given her for free. The mediation room was too warm. Pale yellow walls, a pot of coffee no one drank, and a mediator who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Elise sat across from me. No makeup. A tired sweater. She looked human again. We spoke about Jacob first. Always Jacob. His routines. His needs. We were civil. Coordinated. For 10 solid minutes, we sounded like 2 people who hadn't fallen apart in public. Then came the money. Then came the house. Then came Patrick. We have to address potential contact with the children, the mediator said, not looking up. Given the history, has there been any contact between Mr. Cole and your son? I didn't answer. I just looked at Elise. Her jaw tightened. Once, she admitted. He was there for a pickup. Jacob was asleep. It wasn't planned. She glanced at me. Waiting for the explosion. But I didn't give it to her. You lied, I said, flatly. We had an agreement. No introductions. Not without both of us signing off. He was asleep, she repeated. He didn't even see him. But he was there, Elise. You brought a man you cheated with into a shared parenting space. You broke the first rule. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. I made a mistake. That's not what this is, I said, my voice rising. This isn't for getting milk at the store. This is shaping our son's world without me. The mediator interjected gently. We'll table that for now. But it may be grounds for further review in the custody arrangement. I nodded. Elise looked like she wanted to vanish. We took a break. 10 minutes. I walked outside, stood in the cold air, and thought about all the versions of me I'd buried to survive this past year. The trusting man. The husband. The dreamer. They were gone. But something else stood in their place. Something quieter. Sharper. When we returned, the mediator handed us both a folder. One last exercise, she said. Write down what you want from this. In plain terms. No legalese. Just what your future looks like on your terms. I wrote quickly. I want peace. I want Jacob to grow up knowing two homes can still be safe. I want to be free of lying, of second guessing, of the ghost version of a marriage that only one of us was in. Elise wrote slower. She looked up when she finished. I'm scared. I didn't respond. Not of you, she added. Of me. Of living with the version of myself who let all this happen. There's a quiet that comes after certain losses. Not like the hush before a storm, or even the stillness of sleep, but the kind of silence that hums in your ears and makes you forget what peace ever sounded like. I sat on the porch of the month-to-month rental, one leg tucked under the other, watching the condensation on my coffee cup catch morning light. I'd signed the mediation papers. Officially untethered from the woman I once vowed to grow old beside. It felt anticlimactic. No screaming. No courtroom drama. Just signatures, fatigue, and polite nods. I thought there would be some great emotional tidal wave, but there was nothing. Just the drip of leftover rain from the roof and the ache in my shoulder that always came when it rained. They say, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. I don't think that's true. I think the opposite of love is weariness. When even the memories feel too heavy to lift. I thought about my own failures. I wasn't perfect. I had shut down long before the affair. I let work consume me, let routine strangle joy, let exhaustion speak in place of kindness. I missed signals. Missed her loneliness. Maybe I didn't cause the fracture, but I sure as hell didn't seal the cracks. I remember once, about a year before everything fell apart, I came home late and found her asleep on the couch with Jacob on her chest. She was still in her work clothes. Dinner cold on the counter. I kissed her forehead and went to bed. Didn't even thank her. Sometimes, the things you don't do echo louder than the ones you do. I hadn't cheated. But I had disappeared in my own way. Now, in the aftermath, I had space. Too much space. I started journaling. Therapy encouraged it. I wrote about small things, what Jacob said that made me laugh, what I cooked, the way the air smelled before a storm. But I also wrote about Elise. Not the betrayal. Not the pain. But the things that used to be beautiful. The early Sunday mornings. The song she played when she cooked. The way she used to read aloud with voices just to make Jacob giggle. Because if I let those memories rot, I was giving her the power to rewrite all of it. One entry read. We were good. Then we weren't. But once, we were the kind of good that makes you believe in forever. I needed that to be true. Not for her. For me. They say, you either get bitter, or you get better. I wanted to get better. But healing isn't linear. It's not some ladder you climb rung by rung. It's more like wandering through a house you once lived in, where some rooms still smell like home and others are burnt to ash. There were nights I woke up reaching for a body that wasn't there. Mornings where I almost poured a second cup of coffee without thinking. But there were also moments of grace. Jacob laughing so hard he snorted. My sister bringing over soup when she knew I hadn't cooked. The barista who remembered my name. Tiny stitches in the fabric of something new. I'd started taking long walks again. Found a little bench by the lake. One day, a woman sat beside me. Didn't say much. Just shared the silence. And in that silence, I didn't feel alone. Not exactly. Pain is the price of admission to a meaningful life. That quote stuck with me. I didn't know who said it, but it rang true. Because I had loved. I had lost. And I was still here. Not whole. But not destroyed. The last session with Elise wasn't dramatic. No surprise outbursts. No tears. Just two people who had lived through a war sitting down to draw new borders. We talked logistics, holidays, schools, communication boundaries. It was quiet, but not cold. If anything, it felt like watching two survivors share stories in the aftermath of a storm. At the end, the counselor asked if we had anything left to say. Elise spoke first. Thank you. For still being the father Jacob needs. I nodded. Thank you. For helping me see that I'm stronger than I thought. And that was it. Not closure, but enough. As I walked to the car, something strange happened. I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because for the first time in months, I wasn't weighed down by what ifs. I was free to rebuild, to reimagine, to start again. They say, rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. That's what this felt like. Not an ending. Not anymore. A month later, Jacob and I moved into a small craftsman home 2 blocks from the park. It had chipped paint, a crooked fence, and a backyard big enough for dreams. He calls it Dad's house. I call it redemption. I still take walks. Still journal. Still cook way too much pasta. But I laugh more now. I forgive faster. I love harder. Because I've learned that the worst thing that can happen to you is not heartbreak. It's forgetting that you're still worthy of love after it. If you're reading this and you've been betrayed, if you've been lied to, abandoned, broken, hear me when I say, this isn't the end of you. It's the beginning of your becoming. Don't rush healing. Don't weaponize pain. Don't forget that your story matters even when someone else tried to erase it. And most of all, don't let the person who broke you be the one who defines you. We all walk through fire. But some of us? We learn how to carry the warmth with us. To you, whoever you are, I hope you find the strength to leave when staying would kill you, the courage to love again even when it scares you, and the peace to look back without bitterness. Here's to the life ahead. It's not perfect. But it's yours. And it's waiting.